Ah, the illusion of choice. Isn't it such a cruel thing? What's up guys, Hunter here, and here we are to do a little breakdown and discussion on why the verdict of Sukuna's deadly trial ultimately did not really matter, and actually why taking Kamutoke may have actually been the best thing that could have happened for the crew and cast of Jujutsu Kaisen in this very particular battle against the king of curses himself, Ryomen Sukuna. So, let's not waste any more time, because we have a whole bunch of talk about. Let's hop right into it. Adding me, ready, 3, a 2, a 1, go. What's up guys, I got the pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have a pencil, and then another pencil, and then oh sweet mother mercy, another pencil, and then another pencil. But you may be wondering, Pencil Man, why are you showing us so many pencils? If you're that guy with a pencil, you're not that guy with multiple pencils. What does it matter that you have multiple pencils? And that's what I'm here to tell you. Because if I had to ask you, which one would you rather see me draw with? This pencil? Or this pencil? Or the pencil that just hit the floor because I dropped it? Which one would you prefer? Would you like this one because it's blue? This one because it's orange? Or maybe you would prefer this one because your favorite color is red? Well, let me tell you, no matter which pencil I choose to draw with, guess what? They'll all produce the same image. The illusion of choice. It's something that honestly plays into many things in life. It's something that a lot of people will typically use in order to build up and set up certain ideas in favor of certain options being more beneficial than others, when realistically, no matter which path you walk down, they all converge onto one singular point. And I have a singular point to remind you of. The fact that I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, yeah, honestly, being completely real with you guys, this may have actually been the best outcome because there's certain things that we don't understand about Kamutoke that we do understand about the rest of Sukuna's technique. But of course, let's talk about the main thing that everyone has been up in arms about, unless they're a Sukuna fan. Sukuna fans, they've just been no. They've been praising Gege, they've been dabbing him up, they've been like, yeah! And so like Sukuna fans, if you've invested, like shout outs to all the people who've invested in Sukuna since chapter 1. I know your portfolios are absolutely through the roof, and undoubtedly this whole little interaction right here only added to that. But let me tell you, golly, if you are a Ryomen Sukuna fan, you are eating scrumdiddlyumptious. But here's the thing. A lot of people are unhappy that the judge man quote-unquote fumbled this trial, that ultimately this trial should have taken away Shrine. Why would it take away Kamutoke, something that was introduced so freshly into the narrative for absolutely nothing but to defend Sukuna? Doesn't this count as plot armor? And kinda, we'll talk about Sukuna's plot armor in another video. I mainly focus on the result of the trial here, and why ultimately I think it kinda doesn't matter. I need to remind you that this fella right here, before incarnating into his true form, and whether or not you believe that gave him a stat buff or not, this man, this four-armed, four-eyed fellow right here, he was already on par with, and if you take Satoru Gojo's word, stronger than Satoru Gojo, the strongest sorcerer of the modern day. Need I remind you that Higuruma is a sorcerer of the modern day, that Choso is not a sorcerer of the modern day, but he's fodder, that Ino is a sorcerer of the modern day, that Kusakabe is a sorcerer of the modern day. All these characters are ultimately sorcerers of the modern day. Sukuna beat Gojo. So in terms of overall raw power, removing everything from Sukuna, let's say hypothetically I were to rip Kamutoke out of his hands, I reached deep into his chest, tore out Megami's soul to make sure, just extra sure that he didn't have the 10 shadows, and just had an empty husk of a body, and then I somehow activated a sealing jutsu in order to seal away Shrine itself. Ryomen Sukuna was just sheer physicals, and his fists would most likely grab most of the cast by literally all 4 of their limbs and tear them apart. So in terms of raw power, Sukuna is of that caliber. And with that being the case, this trial was no more than a formality, a hope that they could maybe limit Sukuna. But is the trial itself wrong for taking away Kamutoke, a cursed tool, rather than targeting Shrine, the malevolent Shrine, the ability of Ryomen Sukuna itself? And to that I say, kinda sorta, I definitely do agree with the arguments in general that realistically, if you are charging somebody for a specific crime, right, and you're holding them accountable for a crime that they committed with a weapon, right? And this weapon is a weapon that they are currently in possession of. Of course, curse techniques and like possession is kind of a weird thing. It's why I'm going to get into the fact that Kamutoke being taken away kind of makes sense within the context of how Judgment was established and the nature of how curse tools have been highlighted to be. That's a little bit and a little bit. But with that being the case, I do get the general idea that a lot of people assume that Judgment should have taken away Shrine because Shrine is what's responsible for the mass slaughter. Like, remember when it was my own body rebelled against me. It says enough Sukuna glazing. We're not going to defend him, but it's too late. I must defend him. But of course, remember, Itadori Yuji is being charged for the mass slaughter in Shibuya. I keep saying Shibuya. It is Shibuya, pencil. It is Shibuya. But in Shibuya, I will make sure to confiscate my ability to speak soon enough. But with it being the case, he's being charged for the crime that he committed in Shibuya. And for him to be guilty and still be allowed to have the weapon that, you know, he destroyed Shibuya with, yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense in that aspect. But let's be real. On a making sense level, Judgment doesn't. It simply does. Like, the randomness of the crimes it picks, the fact that it was able to be used in this way, we know very little about Judgment and like how it works relative to our real world crime system. Sure, we see in 244, Higuruma and crew start making a bunch of assumptions on how it works. But even Higuruma admits, well, I actually don't fully understand the entire context of how these things happen and these things work. Ultimately, we're taking a gamble, another gamble. As he says, wait a minute, this might take a minute, whatever. Essentially, Higuruma's already admitting, Judgment is a Shikigami that's part of my curse technique. So if I think it's possible, then Judgment might think so too. So essentially, Judgment is kind of based on Higuruma's limited frame of mind, plus a whole bunch of stuff that Higuruma doesn't even know. And I want you to remember, Higuruma even admits in 244, I actually have never encountered somebody with multiple curse techniques before. And remember, this is also before they even knew that Kamutoke was going to be a factor. 244, at least the majority of it, takes place in the, I don't want to say distant past, but like, it takes place during the month time skip. So overall, Kamutoke was a completely newly introduced factor that they didn't have any idea would even be a part of the trial and wouldn't even begin to notice it. And sure, I definitely also understand the idea of like, hey, you mean to tell me that Higuruma, who had like 100 and something points, he ran into 20 separate people, and not a single one of them had a curse tool on him? Not a single one? That does seem a little bit suspicious. It does seem a little bit suspicious. But honestly, I'm not too shocked. Realize out of all the Culling Games players we saw, the only ones who had like genuine full-to-bear curse tools was Charles with the G-Pen Battle Staff. We ran into like 20 separate people. Like, if you were to count up all the Culling Games players we saw, we ran into like 20 separate people, from Reggie to the helicopter guy to the airplane head girl to Reggie's entire crew from Hazanoki and down. Like, Kashimo, Ryu, Uro, Kuru. I mean, I guess Kurushi had the life festering blade. So that's 2 out of like the 20 people we were introduced to for the Culling Games. Heck, even the people we see Kenjaku hunt down, or at least the one person we see him hunt down, doesn't have a cursed tool. So I can believe that despite Higuruma slaughtering 20 separate people, if not more, I can find it believable that he didn't run into somebody with a cursed tool, and I can also find it believable that he just didn't know what would happen. And another thing that I do find believable is that Kamutoke is a cursed tool in of itself. We gotta remember that Higuruma, 1, never encountered someone with a cursed tool, and 2, Kamutoke is like a completely unexpected factor. Like, they didn't know how it was gonna work. I doubt Higuruma even really noticed it was a thing. Like, presumably he may have thought it would have been excluded from the trial. Once again, maybe going with our logic of, well, if the trial was based on the pretenses of something else, maybe the thing being confiscated was that from the trial. But once again, in 244, it's already very clearly highlighted that Higuruma doesn't actually know how it's going to work because he's never encountered or dealt with somebody with multiple curse techniques. So technically, Kamutoke is kind of just an extension of Sukuna's curse techniques. It's something that he does have that is viable and is something that can be confiscated. And once again, confiscation is something that kind of implies in of itself that it would prefer to go for physical things and that it's very inconsistent, or at least it has multiple variations depending on what people have and do not have. Remember, all the way back, going back in time to Higuruma versus Itadori itself. Remember what Itadori lost? Cursed energy control. Why? Because he didn't have a cursed technique, so it just took away that. And of course, when you have a curse technique, it takes away your curse technique if you don't have something else. So we already know that Judgment works in this weird, like, tier stacking system where it'll go for, like, the most obvious thing to take. So when you have a cursed tool, it's been revealed to us that it'll take away the cursed tool if it's in the trial with you. If you have a cursed technique, but no cursed tool, it'll target the cursed technique. And if you have no cursed technique and no cursed tool, no nothing, it'll take away your cursed energy. So in my opinion, this is just a new level and scale to what confiscation will take away, as it's confiscation. It's literally taking away something from somebody. So I'm not shocked that Judgment took away the actual active weapon. Imagine, how can I think of a comparison to this? So, you are walking down the block. I was about to make a horrible rhyme scheme joke there. I won't. Say you're walking down the block, and somebody just hit you with the pokey poke. And of course, you, being the Chad you are, survived the pokey poke, and then you take that individual to court. And of course, the reason they're in court with you is because they pokey poked you. They did, in fact, as Sukuna has right here, they did, in fact, use the good old, let's say this is the pokey poke. Someone hit you with the executioner's sword, but because you're just that different, you survived the executioner's blade. Sure, it's a sure hit, sure execute on anybody else, but you're different, of course. Come on now. But with that being the case, they hit you with the pokey poke. But in the course of the trial, they aren't currently using the pokey poke. But in the course of the trial, they are also revealed to have another kind of pokey poke, another kind of blade. They may happen to have it on them and keep it on them at all times, but it wasn't the initial pokey poke that they had on them. If you were an officer, once again, I'm completely switching your role. If you were an officer at that area, what would you target? Would you target something that the prosecutor or the prosecuted may have on them, such as the original pokey poke? Or would you target the pokey poke that they are very clearly brandishing? Personally, because I wouldn't know about the whereabouts of the previous pokey poke, hypothetically, I would also target the pokey poke that they are currently brandishing. So even confiscation makes sense to me on that level. It went for the most immediate thing, which would be the curse tool, which is imbued with the curse technique. So technically, it did take away Sukuna's curse technique. It sounds stupid, and it somewhat is, but I can still make sense of it based on how Gege's built up Judgment and curse tools and the whole idea of curse techniques and the vagueness around confiscation and the general uncertainty that he sets up around the whole confiscation idea way back in this chapter in 244. I say way back because we had a 2-week break. But with that being the case, fine, whatever, pencil man. Let's just assume you're all right about that. Let's say that Kamutoke being taken away was an inevitability. Let's go back to what you were first talking about. What do you mean about the illusion of choice nonsense? What does this matter? Well, I kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, but once again, Sukuna can tear these people limb from limb. Literally. Like, he has enough arms to grab somebody and tear them limb from limb. But of course, that's something that's always going to be available to him, right? Like, confiscation, even at its best, if it took away his curse technique, he was just going to have a rougher time controlling his cursed energy, but he's also the best cursed energy wielder in the verse, outside of maybe Big Daddy Jaku. So naturally, even if they were to have taken away his innate curse technique, he likely would have had cursed energy reinforcement down anyway. So there was no way this trial was ever going to remove that from him. He was always going to be, at bare minimum, Ryomen Sukuna, with enough raw physical strength to manhandle characters like Phantom Beast or Mythical Beast Amber, Kashimo, and keep up with, if you think there are no stat changes, keep up with Gojo Satoru, the strongest sorcerer of the modern day. So that was always going to be a thing. But when I get into the real illusion of choice is, once again, let's go back to the pencil analogy. I offered you 3 separate pencils, all to draw the same image. Now, let's change from pencils to you and me are going to go into a duel. You are always going to be barehanded, by the way. Actually, no, we'll flip it. I'm going to be barehanded. Let's say you have some sort of vendetta against me. We're 2 Englishmen walking around in the early 1200s, and you challenge me to a duel. Of course, your boy doesn't have it on him and keep it on him. Okay, you know what? I can't break the mythos like that. I'm sorry. You're going to be, you know what? We're not even going to make it you. We're not even going to make it you. It's just going to be some random dude. You just happen to see me walking down the street with a duel. And someone challenges me to a duel. I'm like, I bet. So I ask you this. I could either duel them with this blade. I could duel them. Actually, no, I actually have an even better example because these blades are of various sizes. I can either duel them with this katana, Or I could duel them with this katana, or I could hypothetically duel them. Please, can I get in there normally? Thank you. Or I could hypothetically duel them with this katana. For reference, all these katanas are the exact same size, exact same weight. I can wield them all equally efficiently, aka not at all. And they all are relevant to my opponent because it's just a choice of what I would poke them with in this duel. By the way, my opponent, no matter who they are barehanded. BT dubs. So, pick one of the three katanas. Does it matter which katana that I use? If, regardless, I'm going to be bringing a sword to a fistfight, let me know. Think about it, and think about it. At least in my opinion, it kind of doesn't. But let me add an extra stipulation to this. All three of these katanas that I just showed you are all imbued with different types of abilities. But out of these three katanas, only two of the abilities I can actively control and suppress based on one's knowledge of me and my own knowledge of these katanas at this moment. So this katana allows me to control lightning, that one allows me to control lightning, and the other one allows me to control lightning. I can only control the amount of output on one of these katanas. Does that change your choice? Which one would you rather take away? Would you rather take away the one that's always going to be firing at maximum power no matter what, presumably? Or would you rather take the chance that I may hold back on my hypothetical opponent and only use the one that has lightning and the other one that has lightning that I can actually control the general output of? At least in my opinion, if you were to put me in that scenario, though I have it on me and keep it on me at all times, so I never be caught in that scenario. But with that being the case, I would rather have the weapons or the katanas that are viable for this duel are the ones that I could actually control the output of, not the one that's going to be firing on 100% at all times, just because we don't know how it works. And this is how we get back into Sukuna and the vagueness of his current existence as Ryomen Sukuna. I am not going to be able to put that up there right now, so I'm going to lay you back over here. So, the main thing that I want to remind y'all, once again, is the overwhelming power of Ryomen Sukuna. So sure, Kamutoke being introduced just to be confiscated does seem kind of plot-y. But here's the thing about Kamutoke. It is entirely independent of Sukuna, for the most part. Like, he just, boom, swings and lightning bolts rain down. We don't even get, like, many variances between these lightning bolts, and it's why I lean towards this assumption. Like, this lightning bolt that he summons down here against Kashimo is pretty much the exact same as the lightning bolt that he summons down against Kashimo in, let me see if I can find it. No, that's for a different point. Please, let me find you. Come to me. Oh no, that's Mini Elephant. We're gonna get to you soon, Minifan, I promise. Minifan, please. You aren't the one I'm looking for at the moment. You also aren't the one I'm looking for at the moment. Okay. Essentially, regardless of my inability to currently find the bolt that I'm looking for, you can double check. Kamutoke is uniform every single time it's used. Even in 238, when Ryomen Sukuna is using against hajimekashimo, what we see is that the bolts are all the same. They come down uniformly. I presume it's because the curse technique is imbued into Kamutoke itself. So, like, hypothetically, if I were to give you a sword, you can control how hard you swing the sword. You can. For the most part, I'd assume. Like, I know some people, it's all or nothing with some people. They could just swing it full force or they can't swing it at all. But at least, like, for example, gently swinging Kamutoke. Well, this is not Kamutoke. If you know what this is, shout out to you. But this, I can gently swing it. I can swing it hard. I can swing it somewhere in between. I can swing it this way, that way, up, down, left, right, no cheat code. There's flexibility and control behind what I can do with this weapon, because it's a fundamental part of me. It's essentially an extension of myself, just like how I can control how hard I punch. But, like, hypothetically, if I were to hand you a Spagooter, can you control how fast the bang bang comes out of the Spagooter? Can you? Personally, I've known people who can manipulate the trajectory of the Spagooter. I know people who can aim a Spagooter really, really well. I even know people who can perform insane... Okay, I don't know people. That's going too far. I don't know people who can perform insane trick shots, but I've seen videos of people performing insane trick shots with the Spagooter. But with all that being the case, I've never seen a single soul who's able to control how fast the bang bang comes out of the Spagooter. It's just something I've never seen. If you know people who can do it, more power to you. Shout out to you knowing people. Good on you for making connections. And that's the thing. Kamutoke essentially was always... God, why do you get so hard to draw sometimes? I have no idea. I swear I'm not far. I swear. Oh, jeez. Is it just how I try to unsee you? Like, sometimes you just be fighting harder than I fight the demons that come for me. And I'm talking about Meliodas. Me and him, we be sparring. But with that being the case, Kamutoke was an all-cylinders kind of thing. I presume that if Sukuna were to have used this, if he were to have dropped this multi-stream lightning bolt on top of Higuruma the moment he spawned, because hypothetically Shrine was taken away, then Higuruma and Kusakabe would have been crispified. Remember, take a look at this fellow right here. Not them. Take a look at our little boy here, hajimekashimo. The man who has a resistance to electrical abilities because he himself is imbued with electricity. He actually takes a genuine amount of damage here. Realize, ironically enough, he takes more damage from this thing that he's resistant to than Uraume takes from Hikari drop kicking them through a building and slam dunking them through a building. Like, flat out, Kashimo takes more damage here from something he explicitly resists than Uraume taking damage from something they explicitly do not resist. So Kamutoke is insanely powerful. And once again, it is entirely independent of Sukuna's own control, presumably because it's something else. It's something entirely unique. He can likely adjust to it, and he knows its activation criteria, but I don't think it's tied to Sukuna's own cursed energy pool or anything like that. It's just something that activates based on how he swings it. So, ironically enough, taking Kamutoke away actually takes away a weapon that Sukuna could just accidentally activate, or just use intentionally, and immediately vaporize our targets. But the beauty of Shrine, and a hypothetical another technique that we're covering, not getting taken away, is that this can happen. Not this, not any of this. Not any of you! Get away from here! You fools, you beasts, you monsters, you demons! But no, none of these. It's the fact that this can happen. Now, of course, I know my Higuruma and Kusakabe hype beasts are out there. I've seen you. You moved as quickly as the leaks spawned. But let me level with you real quick. I think it is quite ludicrous, not the music maker, I believe it is quite ludicrous to believe that Higuruma and Kusakabe, even if Kusakabe is using Simple Domain, by the way, it's quite ludicrous to believe that they could survive full power slashes from Ryoma and Sukuna. Being completely real with you, I believe if One Finger Sukuna were to sneeze a cleave at either of these good men, they would be bisected instantaneously. Being completely honest with you. But you know what this shows? It shows that Sukuna is still willing to be stupid. And I say stupid in the kindest way possible, because he's willing to be investigative. He's willing to be playful and mess around. This is a big thing that he does in the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. As Gojo even notes during their life or death battle, Sukuna is messing around for the most part, doing extremely risky plays. He does not genuinely care for his life all that much. And thusly, with this being the case, he's willing to mess around with his main technique. He's willing to hit them, do extreme, dangerous damage. Of course, you see them being literally torn apart, but they aren't instantly vaporized. Or, if he still had Kamutoke and hypothetically lost Shrine, they're not instantly cooked by a lightning bolt that's likely out of Sukuna's control. So, ultimately, Kamutoke being taken away means that Sukuna can still be stupid. And ultimately may lead to them stalling out Sukuna and leading to a win. And or, once again, them just sneaking Sukuna because he's not taking them seriously. And of course, if Sukuna were reduced to just having Kamutoke, then of course he's going to use it. It's his cursed technique. And while it may have been revealed that he could have suppressed Kamutoke's output, I feel like out of the many, well not many, the few cursed tools we've seen in the entire series, it doesn't seem like that's a thing. It's either their cursed technique is activated or it's not activated. Once again, going back to the Spagooter example, I don't think Sukuna can control how fast he launches the lightning shebang bang, to put it nicely. So ultimately, him keeping Shrine is actually a good thing because he can mess around still. Sure, is it absolutely lethal for our cast? Indubitably. Sure, is this still horrible on multiple different levels because he has access to cleave, dismantle, spatial slash? Oh, insanely. Of course. But at least he can control it. At least he can restrain it. At least it's not too crazy. And of course, a lot of people are assuming, heck, Higuruma made a big assumption here too, that a certain something's gone. And of course, if you don't know what that certain something is, allow me to remind you, that would be none other than the 10 shadows themselves. A lot of people assume that the 10 shadows are cooked, right? Because he fully incarnated, meaning he sacked Megumi's body, meaning that the 10 shadows should no longer be a thing. Plus, they're useless now. Not necessarily on any of those fronts. Need I remind you that he still has Piercing Bull, he still has Divine Dogs, and he still has Rabbit Escape. But the main thing that he still has, that you must always worry and wonder about at night, is none other than not this, not that, not any of these individuals right here. The main thing you must worry about is the mighty, all-powerful, dangerous, more than anything else in creation, the Minifant with its piercing water. That's the main thing you gotta worry about. That's the main thing you can't sleep on, because things will get tragic, unbelievably, without Edu Paddock, because of how mighty Minimum Elephant is. Minifant will go crazy, but once again, he can control that. Just like he can control this, the Piercing Bull, and its effects. He can control how hard that thing runs, if he wants to summon it at all. He can control Shrine. And that aspect of control is why I think this actually was a benefit, if not mattering at all. I'm leaning towards a 50-50. Either you go with the initial idea that I mentioned, that it really doesn't matter, it's the illusion of choice, no matter what was taken away. Sukuna could either tear them apart physically, tear them apart lightning-wise with Kamutoke, tear them apart literally by using Cleaver Dismantle, or if you are like me and are hoping that the 10 Shadows aren't actually cooked, which is strange. I'm a 10 Shadows hater. Why am I the one who still wants him to have it? It's because I want to see Mini Maharaga. I want to see Max Elephant with Maharaga. I want to see Rabbit Escape with Maharaga as well. That'd be so cool. But like that's the main thing. But that's the thing. A bunch of assumptions being made. But regardless, he can actually control the output of the curse techniques that he has innate control over. He can't control the output of Kamutoke, at least in my mind. But if you don't buy that, illusion of choice. Once again, he could one-shot any of them at any time. Sukuna is so unbelievably powerful at this point that every single second our characters continue to be alive, I want you to know it's Sukuna's mercy. And I kind of don't like to come off as a Sukuna slobber here, but I know the main argument. Sorcerer's growth is non-linear, and thusly they could catch up to Sukuna in them. I don't buy it. If everyone was stronger than Satoru Gojo, then Satoru Gojo wouldn't have had to fight alone. Yuta Okotsu and the Kari Kinji, supposedly the two strongest of our current cast, considering how much glaze they've been getting as the heavy hitters, and also all one kenjaku acknowledges of the heavy hitters in terms of Yuta, and all that, they're weaker than one-armed, low cursed energy output, low RCT output Satoru Gojo. They're that weak. So clearly, no one else is actually that strong. So Sukuna, who's stronger than that Satoru Gojo, by a decent margin if Satoru Gojo's statements are anything to be believed, every single time he deals with our cast, it is an act of mercy. The King's quite merciful, isn't he? At least that's how I see it, because Sukuna is so overwhelmingly powerful that ultimately this was no more than a distraction. Essentially, this was padding. And it just is there to show us Sukuna's creativity and his own interest as a character, more so than to be something that will actually progress the plot in any meaningful fashion. Of course, all of this leads to another problem. How are they going to beat Sukuna? And that's a fantastic question. That's a question for another time. I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you guys think that, regardless of all that I've said here, that the trial didn't actually matter, that it should have taken away Shrine, for the reasons I've listed earlier, or even different reasons? Do you guys think that I may be wrong, that Sukuna actually could have controlled the output of Kabutoke and Cursed Tools, and thusly, maybe it would have been better if Shrine was taken away, regardless of how playful Sukuna is? Do you guys believe that the illusion of choice actually factors in here, and that no matter what, Sukuna would tear everybody here limb from limb or not? Please let me me know all that and more in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, psych! You know what time it is. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the Playful King in the comment section down below, the Playful King. But with that being the case, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Once again, please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dag on the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Sukuna Plays, Redwell 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Igneal. I'd like to give a honka thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idemokami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a thicker than a snicker thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another thicker than a frozen jar of peanut butter thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.